Hello, everybody. I posted a link to our agenda in the Zoom chat. If you would like to mark your attendance, if you have any items to discuss today, please add those under the opens. We'll get started in a few minutes. All right. Do I have anyone that is interested in helping us take notes today? Okie doke. I'll do my best to talk and type, but I would appreciate anyone's assistance to collaborate on those notes. Do we have any new friends today that wanted to say hello and introduce themselves to the group?
No, I'm Victor. I'm not really new to the community, but first time joining this call. The reason is I've been watching this video on YouTube. One thing I liked, if possible, I know that this diagram is not finalized yet. I think it'd be great to still go over it. Just like a short presentation, just a couple minutes. This way, when I watch the video online, I know what's going on, latest information about that the diagram.
Sure, we certainly can do that. Well, and welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Sanket. I'm new to the community, so I'm just listening and attending various meetings and just listening and observing, trying to learn.
Great. All right. Does anyone have any topics to discuss today? If not, David gave me some homework that we can take a look at. All right. He is interested in a presentation ready diagram and has provided us a Google Doc with which to collaborate together on. Give me a minute and I will throw that out there. Can everybody see my screen with the diagram? All right, so this is an update we did based off of the CI/CD version 2 graphic that is in our Git repo. And what we did is we took a CI/CD workflow and overlaid the assorted projects of the foundation across the different pieces. And we've shared this with a couple different communities. And so far, this has gotten us very good response. I see I got to tidy up a couple things like basic alignment. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Got to tidy up some alignment, but aside from that, this is what our most recent collaboration looked like. So does anyone have any thoughts or comments on this particular style of illustrating the foundation?
Yeah, I think this is very good. Just if I need to take this slide and explain to someone else in 1 or 2 minutes, how should I go through the content using that flow?
Well, that is something we have not strategized on yet, the actual execution of delivering it. You might have seen we did a town hall last week, and David Wheeler shared this and kind of briefly walked through it, but we have not yet kind of had a chance to regroup to talk about kind of what next steps might be, how, potentially writing a script or speaker notes. But the idea is that we would have this slide available as a resource that anybody could utilize and drop into a presentation. Let's see if I have the ability to edit things or not. It's a little squirrely. Any other thoughts? Do we want to maybe think about writing that script, of giving some outline of how somebody might take this and describe the interesting story of the foundation? All right. As always, you are able to make comments or have a conversation in our Slack channel or on our mailing list. We also can open up issues and PRs if there's things we need more involved conversation on. We want to make sure we get documented. Does anyone have any other suggestions of alternate ways we might be able to share this story? Matt.
Is this close to being finalized, or is it still going to be dynamic? I know I believe I watched last week's meeting, and it was said that it still needs to be verified by each individual group.
Right. I need volunteers to go to each of these working groups and validate with those teams, is this an accurate representation of their work and their kind of placement on the spectrum? So that has not been done yet. So this is not the final.
I know David already gave that presentation in. Is it David? I gave the. I think
David Wheeler.
Yeah. I think he gave the presentation about this slide in the town hall. So do you mind maybe going through now, and probably just by doing it over again, probably can automatically get a script ready, just how to talk about this slide.
Certainly. Before we do that, Matt, did you have a question?
Oh no, I was making it earlier on. I was going to make an observation.
Sure.
So very happy that this turned out. Always been supportive of the CI/CD view. I just want to let you know that I did create my own view of this, and basically what I did was I superimposed some salsa considerations, and I basically divided into source and build, the left side and the right side. So, just an interesting, it was just an interesting exercise in terms of communicating attack vectors to salsa end users to the same diagram. So I found that very useful.
Do you have an example you would maybe share just to kind of show us what you were thinking?
Well, I actually presented it. I'm doing this education internally in my company. Let me see if I can do a quick share. to see what I did. Hold on.
Sure. Yeah, I'll stop sharing here.
Desktop 1. All right, so this is what I did for salsa, basically. So anyways, I just thought it was useful. I don't have the actual feedback loop of the SBOM, as presumably the SBOM going back, but yeah, or evidence, general evidence going back. Yeah. So helpful.
Cool. Yeah. Very much so. And I know that the end user working group is looking at actually doing a formal reference architecture based off of a couple different personas, like a small software development firm, and then right now a large software development firm. And I think they were thinking about taking this CI/CD or potentially documentation from Salsa to start their assessment there. And then they wanted to threat model it, which I thought was interesting, kind of see how we can break it.
Yeah, yeah. So I was also saying, I think I volunteered to take this security tooling work group. So I think that actually happens next Tuesday. So I'll multitask here and put myself in the agenda.
Sure, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Cool, cool. And Jay says he still has a outstanding AI. We'll hopefully get some folks. So if anyone participates in any of these working groups, it'd be wonderful to try to get this particular thing on the docket there to start that discussion so we can refine and make sure we have things accurately placed, as opposed to just kind of David and I giving a semi-expert guess. But how this would be shared. All right, again, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So from a high level, talking about creation and curation of software, starting, it's a never-ending circle, but starting with a developer, we have many different projects, special interest groups and initiatives within the foundation that are directly useful to developers. Things like our secure coding fundamentals class, hands-on lab tools like the security knowledge framework. We also have ways, things around developers being able to get machine readable common requirements through tools like CRE. We also have more prescriptive guidance, where we have several concise guides and best practices documents that are available for developers to kind of understand how to not only create more secure code, but also how to select a little bit more secure code. Then after the developer starts their journey and creates some software, and move over to the source box. And that's where things like the great MFA distribution, where we went through and gave away multi-factor tokens to developers to help try to prevent account and identity takeover attacks. That's where things like that come into effect. But then also, as we have source code, we can use tools like the developer best practices badge to actually demonstrate these are the good practices this project exhibits, and get an electronic badge so they can brag a little bit and kind of show the quality of their work. And then as we move from source to build, we feel that there's an awesome tool called the scorecard. And the OpenSSF scorecard has many different aspects of good security and management practices that is automatically run and provides a numeric score, so that any consumer of open source could take a look at that scorecard and understand kind of the security qualities and practices of those projects. Moving more directly into the build phase, we have a whole SIG dedicated towards security tooling that can help developers as they're going through the creation and build process. We have relevant work with a project called All-Star, which again provides some more prescriptive automated scoring of code as it's going through a build pipeline. And then we have frameworks like something like a Salsa, where that during the build phase helps you understand how software is built and managed. And ultimately, as you move into the packaging phase, things like Fresca apply, just different frameworks and standards that are relevant to these different phases of the pipeline. We also have, as you get to the packaging phase and you're ready to sign, digitally sign your artifacts, we have a project called SigStore that allows to for a statement on, on this day, this developer signed this code and it has been untampered with, and it's in a kind of blockchain style repository that anyone can view publicly and kind of understand a little bit more pedigree and provenance information of that package. Then thinking about the consumer end, we have frameworks like S2C2F, which is a supply chain framework for consumers of open source. But we also have things like a taxonomy so consumers can understand how supply chains can be attacked. And also we're developing a reference architecture around that. So again, consumers can understand how they can apply some of this tooling across the foundation. Hopping back to the build phase quickly, under dependencies, we have projects, things like SBOM Everywhere, where we're looking to help understand and inventory all the different open source tools that help provide SBOM manifest information. We also have tools like open source, the OSS fuzzing project. We have different assortment scanning tools that can be run on these dependencies, so you understand you're bringing in quality packages into your build environment. And then we also have projects like the Secure and Critical Projects Working Group, where they have a list of the top 200-ish open source projects, and providing some assertions, some assertions around how those projects are being maintained and developed, and so we can help focus resources on it. So ideally, things on that critical list are getting attention through projects like Alpha and Omega, or through they're benefiting from the work of like scorecards, so that you can make sure that as you're pulling dependencies into your build pipeline, that you're getting quality and secured materials. We also have assorted projects within the foundation where we can help a developer choose packages, providing them information around different insights around that particular project. We also have we're developing a risk dashboard. Again, as the developers evaluating those dependencies, they'll have the ability to have kind of a risk assessment on, how frequently this package is updated, and kind of what the security aspects are, and what's give you an assessment of risk potentially of using those packages. We also have a couple tools around package feeds and analysis, and all this information provided to the developer so that as they are writing and composing their application and building it, they'll have all this information available to them. And then kind of the tail end, the maintenance aspect of this is typically kind of vulnerability management, vulnerability information. And we have many different initiatives within the foundation that are focused on providing that information, getting that fed into tools, so that again, as developers are working through their pipeline, they'll have access to this. So we have guides on how vulnerabilities are disclosed. We have a prototype project around creating an open source security incident response team that can help provide this information and help evaluate and hopefully correct maybe some of these dependencies in the pipe. And we also have tools like the open source vulnerability schema, which is a kind of similar system to CVE or GSD. So it's another way that a lot of projects publish vulnerability information, and also leverages those other ecosystems like CVE and GSD. We also have, David's got a typo. There's a group of folks working on squashing false positives within open source scanning tools. So they have a specification, and they work on that to try to help make, as scanners find problems, the results are ideally more actionable and meaningful to the developer. Then we also have the CVE benchmarking SIG, which is working on evaluating CVE data. Kind of in a nutshell, that summarizes all the different projects that are going on across the foundation. So did that kind of help your understanding, Victor?
Yeah, definitely. That's great. I'm gonna go back and watch the recording again and again. So one thing I think probably will help, maybe may not be even to be recorded, is that each individual work group might come with a 1 or 2 person to give a presentation using this slide, and they'll probably figure out whether the group is part of a particular stage. For example, the best practices, right? Just looking at the blue squares, they're not they're only at the beginning, so that probably means it's all related to developers, open source developers. So best practices is not for like consumer, which is the like Y S2 C2F is probably it's especially best practice for consumer, right, users. So yeah, I think probably because I still don't know a lot of details, so I cannot really talk. But for the group, the lead, they probably can, when talking through the slide, they can probably see whether their group is missing on some squares or maybe in the wrong location.
Yeah, and there's a wide diversity of things going on across the foundation. And so, for example, there actually is a concise guide for consumers for selecting and evaluating open source software. And it's just, ideally, that stuff will get sussed out as we continue to refine this. And the ultimate goal is both in the kind of table below and also the boxes above, is that everything would be hyperlinked so that somebody could jump right into a project or working groups body of knowledge and be able to see kind of activities, what's going on with the project right now.
Yeah, this is really good. So for most people who don't really kind of contribute to the code or the in-depth knowledge, this is actually good enough. And then just need to be yeah, I guess go over again until yeah, just get familiar with the landscape.
Yeah, and I think ultimately we're looking to have my dear friend Gunnar used to call it a walking around deck, but our dream is we would have a presentation deck that we could very quickly bring out and share this information. That way it can be consistently shared by any member or kind of anyone within the foundation, be able to kind of articulate what's going on. So that's another kind of objective that eventually we'll get into. But this is like kind of David's alpha draft of what this could look like. Matt.
Yeah. So I mean, I enjoyed the layout so much, or the past couple of weeks or whatever, that I never really, as you were talking and walking through from left to right, all the things, I just noted how expansive the security tooling work group was in terms of number of SIGs.
Yeah.
But unless I was in a coma, besides the fuzzing and the SBOM everywhere SIG, I haven't seen all the other SIGs on. And actually, all the 3 years I've been there, I haven't seen any other SIGs like unless these are new ones, but they're not even, I was in the last several meetings, but these are not even talked about, or there's no status.
Right. These are all represented in each of the working groups GitHub repositories. I have added in the notation of a SIG or project based on if it is something is code related or kind of documentation related. And like we had talked about when you first shared the mind map with us, is we have a lot of inconsistencies and we need to do a significant amount of cleanup. So a further step, like when we go to these working groups, would be validating, is there any activity on like the CVE benchmark?
Yeah, I mean,
is that something that's still valid?
Yeah, if you scan, like I said, if you scan for the meeting notes going back for even a couple of years, you'll see you'll see no mention of.
Right. Yeah, but it is listed in their repo, which is kind of frustrating. We need to have a little better bookkeeping.
And a lot of these things are never SIGs. They're just, even before the 2.0 version of OpenSSF, they're just documents, a few people threw together before we were even officially OpenSSF.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and again, the designate, there are 3 things within the foundation that something can be. You can be a project if you have code. You can be a SIG if you work on kind of process or documentation. And then they have kind of a special product associated projects, which is kind of something outside of the general working group model. So
I know.
I added those.
You're trying to fit. You
designations.
need to fit the square pegs and the round holes that are available, but I think it's disingenuous to represent these things as SIGs. They've never met as an independent group. So,
And
ever.
our definition of SIG is that this is something that could be short or long term. So, talking with Josh and the tooling guys, we need to basically documentation cleaned up. Are these still active things, or are they retired, archived? So we need to go through and do that work.
Yeah, a lot of these are just documents that, they've never been a separate group or SIG. They've never had meeting minutes calling themselves a SIG. They just been, markdown files for the
Right.
for the
The SIG was inherited through the TAC PR 112, where we renamed everything. They might have called it a project or initiative back in days of yore, but the nomenclature today would designate that as a SIG. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're active or not. And that's another aspect we could definitely share.
Oh, that's what I'm worried about. It's like we say a SIG. I want to find a calendar entry. When do these people meet? And that doesn't exist.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we should go talk to them and get them to fix their docs.
yeah.
Yeah, another thing I noticed is I know there's some additional effort, maybe not class or group. They're like in memory, the new group. They're also like a repository. They may not belong to the diagram, but it'd be great probably have some additional slides just to mention where they belong, fall in the picture.
The software repos is AG. Again, I can't edit the document to move the box to make it more visible. But the repos are, the securing software repos is there, and they only have right now one kind of thing that they list doing. Again, this is a starting step. That there's a lot of work that needs to go through to verify the accuracy of this and get things cleaned up. And I welcome everybody on the call to help us with that.
What I mean is, like for newcomer, yeah, sometimes I guess the best way to understand which each expert in that area is kind of intruding, not helping. So I feel that if there is this helps me as a newcomer to just to watch this diagram to see what's going on and know where things fall, and then I can just based on this understanding of this diagram, go watch the corresponding YouTube videos.
Cool.
So that this will help a lot.
Good. And like to Matt's comment, like security tooling, that has essentially been transformed into the SBOM Everywhere SIG. That is almost exclusively the work that they're doing today. And if there's value in kind of keeping those artifacts, those historic artifacts there, or do we need to retire them? It's future conversations to make sure that this is as accurate and useful as possible. All right. Any other questions, comments, or feedback on the slide here? All right. Do we have any other topics we'd like to discuss today? All right, friends. With that, I will give some time back. I appreciate your time and attendance and comments today. We will meet again in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll have some updates to the diagram to get it more accurate. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.